welcome to another team review. In this team review, we are going to be going over a Royals only team. Now, the explainer text that was handed to me, this is from Godsword. So thank you, Godsword, for submitting this. This is a no DLC run with asterisk. Tiki Paralog was done before Chapter 10 to get early Royals to Ivy's internal level. To make EXP allocation easier and use DLC resources. Okay, so I'm assuming that means like stat boosters and stuff. So we'll see probably extra stat boosters, SP books, and I'm assuming, I don't know if he used Tiki. It doesn't look like Star Sphere has been used. All right, so let's go over this team. All right, so the O'Lear build. So we have a Willy Glands. So Willy Glands is a really good weapon, but it has pretty late availability. Sword power 5, speed plus 5. So you have 1 to 2 range. You can bonded shield with 90% on Divine Dragon. That's pretty decent. You have liberation plus 5, probably for building up Lucina. You have Armor Slayer and Worm Slayer utilities. You can of course always Parthia flyers as well, which also gives you that bonus XP, so that's pretty nice. Parallel Falchion, I think that's like dragon effectiveness, so I feel like these probably cover what these mostly do. The Armor Slayer, though, that makes sense. Like, there's the Rapier, but its might is weak, so Armor Slayer is going to be more might. But this is a pretty good sword build. You have pretty good bonded shield business. Now, there are... Who else could bonded? I guess you could do Cav, but there isn't another Cav aside from Alfred. But, yeah, this is probably, like, one of the best bonders in this type of team comp, because you don't really have access to like same type or Chi Adept, so there just simply is no Chi Adept in this team. All right, next we have Veil Ike. So this was something I wanted to try out, but it looks like he beat me to it, or maybe has already done this multiple times already. But Veil actually has good enough bases and speed that with speed fixing, she's like one of the few magical units in the game who can actually get away with running Ike. Now she has her base dagger plus 4 with Marth, steel dagger plus 4, so she can target res and defense, which is nice. Excalibur for shooting down flyers, Thoron for 3 range poke, Gentility plus for plus 5 damage on all of these weapons, which is pretty interesting. Now the Resolve plus, her defense is good enough here that with Resolve plus and half damage, she will be pretty tanky. So she's not going to be as tanky as the tankiest units, but she'll be tanky enough that she can put in a lot of work. And her Great Aether is probably going to be the weakest aspect of her kit. Some people really value Great Aether. Honestly, I think it can be overrated. If your unit just simply 1-rounds most of the things attacking it anyways, for 4 turns, that's better than Great Aethering. And Great Aethering, it can be really good. So it depends. It depends on the use case, I would say. But it can be better or worse, like circumstantially. But this is a pretty fun build. You also get the Wrath, which boosts all of her stuff, which is pretty fun too, for the crit rates. Woohoo! Alright. Alfred, so Avenir, so this is a Royals run, is you have to use them on their class. So Lance power 5, speed plus 5 on Lyn. This is probably the best emblem for him because he's quite slow on Avenir, even if you level him up a lot. And if you want to fact check this, just go to Veilbot on my own Discord and look at his growths on fixed and random mode and on Avenir, and you'll see that his speed is always going to be an issue. But he has decent strength. So with Lance power 5, Repisalis, I think that's how you say it, I'm probably wrong. Plus 3 with Byleth, with 12 build, this should be good enough to run this. Rider's Bane for super poke on riders, like mounted calves and stuff. Armor Slayer. This is an interesting thing about this class, is that it's Lance Sword, and it also has the Golden Lotus tanking. So he's 32 defense, and then he also has a dex % chance to have damage, which in this case is 29, which is pretty good. That's like 1 in 3. So 1 out of 3 combats, I think it's only physical though. 1 out of 3 physical combats you have damage, which is decent because if you get hit by 3 things, chances are 1 of those will get halved. In addition to his like decent res on a faster frame, we'll say, because of Lyn. So you're looking at pretty good super poke on riders. Pretty good super poke. Well, actually, the Lance power doesn't really scale off the Armor Slayer, but you can still use this to probably put good damage or 1-round some riders or some armors. Sorry. But this is probably... Now, you also have to consider for a Royals run, if you're running Lyn on Alfred, you're not running on an Ivy. But Ivy can get away with running other things. I've used her on other things and was able to get her doubling. You do need Speed Taker and probably Speed plus 5, or some external source of Speed plus 5, like Covert, Byleth, Dance Instruct, or Dragon Dance Instruct. Okay, Diamont. So Diamont is on Marth. I'm assuming he switched him to Marth late, because obviously you can't be on Marth throughout most of the game. So this is an interesting build. We are leaning into mixed weapons. Strength plus 6, I think, is 5k. It's either 5 or 6k SP. It might be 6. I think strength plus 5 is 5k, because strength plus 2, I think, is 1k, which is confusing. And then it starts becoming 1k per rank. It's either 5 or 6k. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's at least 5k SP. So 7k SP build. His strength with Marth is pretty good. Tomahawk, weightless tomahawk, weightless hammer, weightless poleaxe. I've actually never really seen people run hammer and poleaxe, so it's kind of interesting to see. Now, the hammer could be replaced with an armor slayer, which is probably... I mean, his dex is only 26 here, so the accuracy on the hammer... Now, enemy armors are slow, so I guess it doesn't really matter. So it's probably fine. Now, the poleaxe has low hit, so, I mean, if you're on Successor, you can't use Rider's Bane, so you can't just, like, whip out the more accurate weapon. But for killing, like, Great Knights, you could use either of these. For hitting, like, Mage Knights, this is fine. For hitting Wolf Knights, this is suspect, but you would just use someone else. So this is a decent build. It is very expensive, though, SP-wise. But the nice thing about a Royals run is, generally speaking, you're going to be hyper-investing in, like, 7-8 units. And he did specify that he used the SP from the starting, like, DLC resources. So that also gives you, like, I think 3,500 SP. But if you're tier 4 welling the whole time, it's pretty easy to achieve. Okay, the Ivy build. All right, this is exactly... I actually literally ran this build, and it's pretty good. It's actually one of her better builds, I would say, because I don't think she's the best Lin unit, honestly. And usually her passives are devoted to more speed fixing anyways, canter, maybe damage fixing. But the nice thing about Corrin is you get +5 magic, +3 res, and you get a lot of HP. So you add to Ivy's natural bulk, and you can also have her get to be fast enough with Speed Taker and Speed +5. So what she can do, and this is what I used, this is literally the build I used for her, is you fly up to a group where you know she can tank, and you have her freeze them, and then they're forced to fight her. And you make sure you calculate out the damage so that when they're frozen, only the right things will attack her. So if there's an archer in the group, the archer is too far away, for example, and then she enemy phases like maybe 1 or 2. So she kills something by freezing, and then enemy phases like 1 to 2 and easily tanks it with the improved health and res and her natural good defense bulk. And then the speed gets fixed from Speed +5 and Speed Taker. Bolg with a Lucina engraving, very good. It helps her hit rate, which she needs badly, and it also gives her some avoid on top of the speed, so then she can kind of avoid tank a little bit. Not like main avoid tank, but avoid tank enough where some of the time she just dodges and gets away gets away without getting hit. Alright, Tamara. Gentility plus, speed +5, Roy build. Okay, so this is a good build. I ran something similar with Resolve, plus the Gentility damage might actually be overkill, because Roy, when engaged, gives you +8 strength and +6 strength otherwise, and you also can roll for sandstorms. When you engage on Roy, I think you're either +3 or +4 dex, probably +3 at the minimum. So 35 dex, 35% chance of sandstorm in all of your physicals except for Flame Lance, which is magical. The Gentility gives you true damage too, which is nice. Now the nice thing about this build is it's tanky, and also with Binding Blade, you get defense and res +5. So when you engage on Roy, you'll get defense and res +3, in addition to the res +3 and the health plus. So engaging makes you tankier, and then using Binding Blade makes you tankier. Now you can also use Fence Lore to 1 round, Javelin to 1 round, Rider's Bane to super poke with decent accuracy. It's a more accurate weapon than the poleaxe, and she also has higher dex, and you get more dex when you pop Roy. So this is a pretty good build. It's basically my Tamara Roy build, but with Gentility instead of Resolve. Now, which is better? Both will scale your sandstorm damage. The Resolve will give you a little bit more sandstorm damage. This will get you a little bit more consistency. It's also a little bit more expensive. It's 1,000 more SP, but it's still not that expensive. And also Roy gives you speed when you engage, so she'll be like 40 speed. So she'll pretty much double everything in the game. And on might alone, she'll be 1-rounding a lot. Roy and Sigurd are really good emblems for her. So is Erica. They play into her kit. They also tend to give her a lot of the stats she needs for her builds to work. But this is a pretty good build. This is a pretty solid tank build. All right, Fogado Erica. Okay. We have a 11 sword Cupido. This is actually a pretty decent use case. Now, when you engage on Erica or just switch to bravery mode, you're plus 8 damage per hit. With sword power, you're plus 10. So you're plus 18 damage per hit on all of your swords. Like your magical swords, I should say. And then when you switch to Folkvanger, you get the armor penetration from Lunar Brace, and then if you engage, you also get the plus 5 damage. So he'll one round on Brave Bow, he'll one round on most of these things, which is pretty nice. And you do get magic increase, which scales your Radiant and your Levin. And then you also can go for one rounding armors on Brave Bow, just off of Lunar Brace Plus. If you quad with Lunar Brace Plus, you tend to just one round armors, because they have like 40 to 50 defense, and you get 30% of that per hit. So it usually ends up being like 12 to 13, 14 damage per hit. And then if you are engaged, you also get plus 5 damage per hit from Gentility Plus, Blue Skies plus damage. So then you're looking at 20 true damage, and then I think the Lunar Brace is also true damage. So 20 total true damage per Brave attack hit, plus like 60 or so Lunar Brace damage. It's pretty silly. And then he has Tiki on there. I'm guessing he'll have Tiki to some degree for the extra damage on the Brave Bow. But the Brave weapons with Erica one round armors right through their armor, which is pretty cool. This would be a good utility. He also can enemy phase with 11 sword. He's pretty fast, and he has some avoid stacking between the speed plus 5, the 11 sword, Sigurd engraving. He also has enough build that none of these weapons really slow him down at all, except for the Brave Bow. But even then, if you're attacking armors with it, you also can always pull out Sieglin, which is straight up one rounds most things you attack with it. It's corrupted effective, so as long as you have like 15 plus, I think it's strength-based strength, you'll be fine. Alright, Alchrist. Alright, so we have a Draconic Hex debuffer, speed plus 5 on Micaiah. So it looks like he is a utility debuff staff mod. It's actually an interesting use case. So he can Great Sack, he can Rescue, he can Mend, he can Obstruct. He can also debuff, which is nice. So this is a pretty good utility build. Erica Longbow is a really good weapon. You can also go for Lunas on it. Maybe that converts into a crit Luna, which could kill a lot of enemies. And then he also has Lend-a-Bear, lending you my bears, plus 3 with Corrin. So he's going for crits and Lunas. So basically the idea behind this, it's very similar to the types of Thoron staff bots I recommend people run, where you just give them a Thoron, let's say like Citrine's like the perfect example of this. You give her a Thoron, you crit engrave it with like Erica, with Lyn if it's not being used, with Byleth with the Lear engravings, or Corrin even. Corrin is one of the worst ones because it doesn't hit fix, and all those other ones hit fix. She kind of needs it, but you give them a hit fixing crit engraving, and 1/3 of their attacks just kill, and then they also staff bot. And they can also have Draconic Hex, so that way you don't care about speed, and you only care about, you can do like Draconic Hex Canter, and then they can kind of, move into a somewhat dangerous position, 3 range, and then canter out, and then also Hex. So if it doesn't kill, it'll Hex, or at the very least, it'll put like 1/3 or like half damage on something. So pretty similar to this. So the concept is solid. Saline and Byleth. Okay, so this is a Mystic. What does Mystic Byleth do? Is that Magic Plus? I think it's Magic Plus. Like Magic plus 4? Let's see, Mystic, Instruct. Magic plus 4. Wow, I have good memory. Or sometimes I have bad memory. Magic plus 4. So Magic plus 4, who does that hit? That hits Veil. That hits Ivy, that hits Tamara's Flame Lance, that hits Fogado's weapons, that hits Hort. So that's actually not bad. Now, who else would you give it to? Probably Alir. I think Alir is the best use case, but 90% Bonded is also good, so it's kind of hard to say which is better. It depends on if you want to use Bonded more, or if you want to be more aggressive with your dance combos more, because both are valid, and both I would say are like S tier setups. But this is a pretty good use case, I would say. Like if Alir is not available to do this, and obviously Veil's running something else and has poor availability anyways, for most of the game this was the AoE dancer. But it's a Hex Thoron, so similar concept. A Hex Thoron, the Bolg is weight engraved, or Celica engraved to reduce weight, so that it only costs her 4 speed, with speed plus 5. On bulk, she has 32 speed. She'll double armors for decent magical damage, so that's not bad. Violet also does give speed. The Divine Pulse Plus, I think someone, I don't think it was him, I don't think it was Godsword, but someone else was using these, using Divine Pulse Plus with like offensive staves. That's a thing you can do. Now you do get Thyrsus, which is huge. So this is actually, all right, so this is a siege. So this is, that's interesting. It's a siege hex. Siege hex. Huh. And then you can super Thoron range. So Thyrsus gives you, I think, range +3. So that way you can hit a 4 and 5 range with these. Now, I might have actually run speed plus, or speed taker with this also. Just to get her speed up even more so she doubles more things. And just get rid of hex. Because, like, what's better, doubling or hexing? I would say doubling is better as a siege. But this is still a good use case, especially for like cheap. Like if this is not going to be one of the primary combat units, this is still like a cheap, you know, huge range debuff AoE dance and gives magic to some things that can make use of it. I love how Hort's hands in front of her face. Hort, all right, another hex, staff master. This is just like a straight up staff bot. This is interesting. Micaiah engraved Elfire. So she's just gonna. So he understands that Hort's gonna die if she gets hit. So he's just like, whatever. She's gonna be in the fray. I'm just gonna make her an avoid tank. Now I'm curious to see how that would work on like an Elfire +3, with like speed +5, and what else? Gentility plus. Ooh, that's a spicy build, I think. Because then you have enough avoid tanking that your average combat is avoid tank. But then, and it's also in Sigurd, which is also interesting, because Sigurd gives defense and dex, which stacks with World Tree. So this is a pretty interesting use case. And the build, I want to see an avoid tank Sleipnir that also uses gentility, because like with Sigurd you get defense plus. The main thing that one-shots her is physical. Magic almost never one-shots her because she's high res. So if you just add her res to her current health, she's 81 health when a mage attacks her, right? So if a mage has 50 might, she'll be at, you know, she'll take 9 in this case. So she can take magic all day. So giving her Sigurd patches her defense, which is usually a few points shy and causes her to die from fast, accurate enemies like enemy griffins and wolf knights. So patching her defense and giving her gentility would make her tanky enough that if something does hit her through her avoid tanking, she can shrug it off. So she could off tank like 1 to 2 things in aggressive positions. And then with the gentility damage, with the Elfire, she could put out decent damage, but it depends because she does have lower magic on this class. But this is like a straight up staff bot utility that has avoid tanking just in case it gets focused. And then also has Draconic Hex. But he doesn't necessarily need Thoron, or in this case Elthunder, because you can hit and run. Now you can get counterattacked at 2 range, which could be a problem. So I guess you'd have to kind of pick and choose your targets, check their hit rates and so on, and just go from there. But if you Micaiah engraved an Elthunder, I think she would be fine because the build +3, where it wouldn't really slow her down much. So she could probably get away with doing that. So that way she can 3 range poke and then canter into like more safety. And I think that's it, right? Yeah, that's it. All right, so that was the team. So overall, so for the Royals team. All right, so let's go over the emblems used. We have Lucina, Ike, Lynn, Marth, Corin, Roy, Erica, Micaiah, Byleth, and Sigurd. No Celica. Celica can give Hort a ton of damage. That's something I want to try out. I think Celica could be the way that Hort is a combat S tier on Sleipnir, because I think otherwise, like as a staff bot in normal play, she's just like A tier, like high A tier. That can deal damage, kind of like mage tank. But she can't counterattack mages for meaningful combat. She just like absorbs the hits and maybe puts out like single digits in response. Roy, Erica, really good for damage. Byleth, really good utility, dancing. Corin, fantastic utility, shutdown. Lynn, really good for speed fixing slow units, as well as the doubles. Ike tanking is really good. Bonded shield is really good. Which emblems are really missing? Here, let me look at all the emblems really quick. All right, so Celica's missing. Leaf is low impact. Pretty much all the major ones are being used. There's really nothing that's being left out that's like super useful. So like Leaf and Celica are the two emblems not being used. Now, Leaf would not really help any units here. Celica, you could use Celica on Hort here if you went for the DPS routes, but this is a staff bot. Like, not everyone can kill, right? Like, when you have a team comp, not everything is going to be killing. Sometimes things need to do more than that or something else. So, like, if you try to dump all of your SP books into every single unit evenly on a full team, you will quickly find that you will run out of SP books. You'll run out of forges, you'll run out of engravings. So really, you don't want more than like 6 to 8 combat units, like main combat units. You can have secondary combat units, like dual assist heroes that attack occasionally, sages that mostly staff bot and Thoron poke occasionally, longbow debuffers, Thoron debuffers, archers that just go for shooting down flyers, like a radiant bow. Anna is like, or Fagato are like the prime example of like low investment archers that can put in serious work on flyers. So things like this are typically what you want as non-competing free units, because I kind of view team comps as like you have your actual main primary team, and then you have utilities like staff units, Thoron units, debuffers, quality time units, and so on. So you could make Hort a DPS, but then you're losing out on a staff bot utility, which obviously is the use case here, right? And then the high deck stacking gives you more freezes, more silences, which allows Horts to still be relevant, because like freezing an enemy is basically like killing it for a turn. Silencing a mage is basically like killing it for a turn. Fracturing something can set up free damage on it so that another unit can safely attack. So yeah, pretty good team comp, pretty balanced. The Saline and the Hort are like your main utilities. Alcris is also a utility. And then you have Ivy. Ivy has staff access, which is nice, so she can kind of help every now and then, but primarily she's going to be killing, of course. And then you have tanky Diamont, tanky Alfred, a tanky Veil, a bonded shield suit. Like, the whole team can tank, which is nice. That's another thing that you want to have, I would say. Tamara, Diamont, Alfred, and Veil can all tank, and Ivy. So like all of your combat units can tank, and Alir can make any other unit tanky. So basically your whole team comp here is everyone can tank on their own, which is huge, because then you can just have them go fight 2 to 3 things by themselves and secure those, convert those into kills, and then you can make rapid progress. And you can also bond it to make redundant tanking, so you have like multiple sources of tanking. Because like typically if you make something around bonded shield, you have a unit who isn't a tank. So maybe like an Anna or a Pandreo, like Mage Knight or something, or Griffin Knight, and then you just bonded them and they just kill everything. That's typically how it's used, but in this case, like you can basically get away with running the 90% on top of like these other tank types. So like any of your main tanks can just absorb tons of combats and just kill a lot of things. But this is a pretty good Royals team. Now with the DLC resources, obviously it's going to be a little bit better than a non-DLC team, and the resources used, I'm assuming, were the stat books and the SP books, or the stat boosters and the SP books, which honestly, if you want to use those, it's whatever. Like, it's a single player game. I know some people get really elitist about who uses what. I know I always like talk down on DLC. I don't think it's bad if you use DLC. I just don't like, I just don't enjoy using it because I feel like it's just not implemented in a way that lends itself to game balance. And the better you get at the game, if you continue running DLC, it's just like, you just get over leveled and you get too many extra emblems. I think those are the two issues from the DLC. I wish it was implemented in a way where it didn't ruin the game balance like it does, because like as people get better and keep beating Maddening mode, they will just find that the DLC feels like redundant and too easy at times. So it's like you can theory craft new DLC builds, but just by doing the DLC, you're going to power level your whole team no matter what, because the DLC maps scale to whatever level you are. So I do wish it was implemented in a different way. But yeah, this is a pretty interesting team. Thank you for submitting this God Sword. If you want to submit your own team, all you have to do is become a channel member and send it to me. And with that, I will leave you with the sliding Tamara. We'll ask you to like and subscribe for more meat content. All right, thank you for checking us out. Peace.